You're a figment of my imagination.
Really? Is this a figment of your imagination?
Beetlejuice Beetlejuice is a 2024 dark fantasy comedy horror movie. Directed by Tim Burton, it's a sequel to Beetlejuice from 1988 and stars Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, Jenna Ortega, Monica Bellucci, Willem Dafoe, and Catherine O'Hara. After a family tragedy, 3 generations of Deets return home to Winter River.
When I was a teenager, a trickster demon terrorized our entire family and tried to force me to marry him.
So I just got done checking out Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, and I just loved this movie. I had so much fun with it. It's one of those movies where I scratch my head on any of the criticism I've seen and why anyone wouldn't have a good time with it. I guess maybe it's just expectations once again, kind of biting people in the ass. You expect, this and you get this. I don't know, because I don't know what you would expect from a Beetlejuice sequel. I know that also I was just charmed by the nostalgia of it and the look of it. It looks brilliant. I mean, it's definitely a Tim Burton movie, and that just felt so good to be in the presence of and just live in for 2 hours. It's one of those things that just takes me back to movies, stuff we don't get anymore, especially when it comes to practical effects and the colorful schemes and designs of the sets and the costume design and things that are done in this. We just don't see this kind of stuff anymore. And so for me, it was just literally magic. I felt so good in this movie. I just enjoyed everything about it. But beyond that, the way it's written, I think is really clever. The way they introduce new characters, as well as having a lot of old characters still involved without pushing it. I didn't feel like anything felt forced in this. You didn't feel like there were certain characters that had no reason to be here other than nostalgia. Like what they did do, I think, just felt real seamless, because in every way it feels like a Beetlejuice sequel, and it isn't trying to take on modern ideas really or any of those things. The story of it and what it's really about and all that, I thought was fun and not bogged down with them trying to make a movie that's going to connect to today's audience. They just made another Beetlejuice movie. I found that it had the same sense of humor to it and just in general the same feel to me. I mean, sure, there are plenty of things that are modern and different in this as far as little things. I mean, the way it's shot, there are definitely some CGI moments and things in this, but none that really stood out to the point where it took me out of this world. And the way they integrated the stuff from the old with the new, I really enjoyed it. I mean, the integration just felt so natural. I really enjoyed the way they put Beetlejuice in this. He has a reason to be there. And the first movie, it's funny, it's easy to forget how little he's actually in the movie unless you've seen it recently. And so I was kind of worried going into this that he would just be in every single scene and overused, but he's not. I mean, he is in this. He's one of the important characters to the story, so he's on screen quite a bit. But what they did, I thought, was pretty clever, where they have kind of 3 different stories that intersect. And so it never puts any one character on screen too much or too little. They're all involved, but yet never the main focal point. I also thought they were pretty smart on how they dealt with one character in particular. I can't mention it because it is a spoiler, but some of the things that felt kind of important to this world and that I was questioning, like, how would they go about handling that? I thought they did it in a pretty good way. So I think if you look at this movie with a critical eye, which I never do, I'm not a film critic. I'm just a guy that enjoys watching movies and talking about them here on YouTube, and hopefully giving you guys a little bit of insight, a little bit of something that helps you out and maybe brightens your day. But I'm not a critic, so I'm sure if you look at this through a real critical lens, you could have problems with it and, whatever. But I just don't, and I didn't. I just had fun with this movie like I think most general audiences will. Another concern I had going into this was how much Jenna Ortega was going to be the central focus here, because she is the one big main new character. She's a big star, especially in the horror world. And so I was like, is she going to take up most of the runtime, and is it going to be solely about her? And they did a great job with that. She is in the movie a lot, but like I said, the way they connect these different stories together, but yet how they're all connected, I thought was a good balance. I never felt like there was any one character that was on screen too much or didn't need to be there, but was there for Hollywood execs for making money purposes or whatever. Everything to me felt really natural and believable. Another big standout to me, besides the obvious, was Willem Dafoe's character in this. He's so much fun. I love his look, the way he plays this role. It's so fun. It feels like cartoon almost level, but not so over the top that it doesn't really fit this universe. It's really enjoyable too on how much you get to see of the afterlife. Not just Willem Dafoe, but there's a lot of different little characters and things you get to see there where it kind of broadens this universe more, but without losing sight of what you came there to see and the crucial things. But the biggest thing, the thing that of course everybody is going to this movie to see, is Beetlejuice. And Michael Keaton knocked it out of the park again. He just falls into this character so seamless. And I was kind of surprised, to be honest, because in the trailers, I felt like Beetlejuice, at least in this first trailer, and that's the only one I think I've watched, you could see the age on Michael Keaton, just in his voice and mannerisms. They felt a little tired. They felt a little bit slower. It didn't feel like it was quite as, sharp as he was in that first movie, which makes sense. I mean, he's a lot older. But when you actually see the movie, his age just doesn't come to mind. I mean, he does such a good job with this role. He, to me, was just as witty, just as sharp, just as much fun to watch on screen as he was in the original. Winona Ryder also really reprises this role fantastic because, she's a lot older. She's a full-grown woman and a mother at this point. And so there's definitely going to be changes, but I felt the way she still was this character, but yet grown up, that whole way it was written, the way she performed it, I really enjoyed. And one thing I really liked too about this is I felt like they leaned a little more into the horror than maybe even the first movie. There was some visuals, some characters, different things that I'm not saying were R-rated level, anything like that, weren't really gory, but just the ideas and looks were pretty dark, pretty creepy, and definitely felt horror. Now, I'm not going to say this is a full-blown horror movie, but horror enough that I felt comfortable calling it a dark fantasy comedy horror movie. So it's one of those situations where I can't really tell you flaws. To me, I just enjoyed the whole experience of it, and there wasn't anything I felt like, oh, that stands out. That is a bad decision. That should have been changed. If I were to rewatch this, with notes, I guarantee you I could find problems with it. So you're going to see some critics, some people that talk about movies out there on YouTube or in writing, whatever, that are going to point out some flaws and a lot of criticism this will have. There's going to be people you're going to hear that are not going to have enjoyed it, and it's going to be for various different reasons. But none of those stood out to me. And I think the majority of you are going to feel more like I do than like the people that had issues with this movie, because it's something that's written for the majority of Beetlejuice fans. And that's what it should be. I don't get this whole thing where people feel like almost like you should write something for critics, especially when it's something like this. This is almost cartoon level of a movie. In my opinion, it should be watched to just have fun with, have a good time with. And so if you did, then I think it's a successful movie. And so that's really all I can say about it. I think it was successful at doing what it was trying to do. And that's coming from someone I'm not a huge Beetlejuice stan, you know what I mean? I don't have a Beetlejuice tattoo or anything like that, but I do love it. And there is some nostalgia in it for me. I've watched it numerous times in my life, and I have fun with it every time I've watched it. It is definitely a part of my life. I'm just not saying I'm an enormous fan to the point of like counting the days until this was released. It wasn't my most anticipated movie of the year or anything like that. So I think, once again, I fit into what most the audience out there that's going to go see this feels. I think it was really successful at being a movie that both adults and parents are going to enjoy, as well as the kids. Maybe not little itty bitty kids that'll get scared easily, but definitely your 9, 10, 11, 12. I think at least that level of kids are going to have a good time with it. I mean, in the theater I saw it, there was everything from people that looked like they were in their 70s to kids that looked like they were maybe 7, 8 years old, and everybody seemed to have a blast with it. So I think it's a movie that really should be seen in a theater. Like I said, just that feeling of being in this universe for 2 hours, it just felt magical to me. I really had fun with it. And I think seeing it at home, it'll still be enjoyable, but definitely you won't get the feeling of being engulfed and in this world. And I think a movie like this is really meant to be seen in that way. I just felt so grateful to have at least one more time of seeing Tim Burton make something that's on the big screen and getting to live inside of a universe that he created, his look, his style, getting to enjoy that at least one more time. I think that in and of itself makes this worth going out to a theater and seeing. But that's going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for checking this out. And I want to give a massive, huge, enormous thank you to the Ghost Pirate crew, to you guys over on Patreon, and to the channel members over here. You guys mean so much to me. And if you would like to help support this channel over on Patreon, there's a link down in the description. Or you can become a channel member by clicking on that join button down there and support the channel that way. But like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button. And remember, guys, horror can be fun. And if you enjoyed this, click right here to watch me talk about Afraid, Blumhouse's latest disaster. And I'll see you guys next time.